Welcome to another episode of Riverside Theatre's Putting It Together series, and by putting it together I mean shows. Riverside Theatre is the only professional producing theater on Florida's Treasure Coast. And as a producing theater, we create all the elements to put on a show right here in Vero Beach. Today we're in the costume shop, if you can tell, and we're talking to Anna Hilberry, our costume shop manager. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
So, before we get into the details, give me a little background. How did you get started in costuming? What sort of brought you to this career?
I honestly had no idea that it could be a career. My senior year of high school, I took drama, and my teacher knew that I took interest in possibly going to college for fashion design and got me involved in a competition. I didn't want to act or be on stage. I preferred to be behind the scenes. So she said, why don't you design this play, come with us on the trip, and that way you can be a part of the group and the competition. So I said, okay. So she handed me a script and I designed the costumes and went along. It was just for fun, really. And next thing I knew, the dean of Florida School of the Arts sent his rep after me after my presentation and offered me a talent scholarship to go to Florida School of the Arts.
Amazing.
So, and the rest is history. I realized I kind of just fell in love with sewing and honestly, a lot of people think it's just, drawing and things like that. But my professor said, if you're not here to, work and sew and do everything across the board and not just draw pretty pictures, you're in the wrong place. It definitely got a lot of experience, hands-on experience at Florida School of the Arts.
Well, you mentioned at the very beginning you were given the script to read. So how important is the costume department involvement from the beginning of putting a show together?
Yes. Reading the script is key. You can't just watch, whatever Broadway did. There's so many details within the script and things that the script calls for as far as specific costumes, colors, everything from if the person's wearing glasses, it will sometimes mention that in the script. So it's important to read the script a couple times. You want to read it first just to read the script and get an idea of the show, but then also go along and take notes of all of the notes that they have in the script about the characters, and then really do your homework with the history or the time period that it's taking place. And sometimes when we're doing a show, we might change the year that it takes place, so that changes everything. So yeah.
Well, how... Don't you also, involved with learning the script, but don't you have to know what the actor is doing in that specific costume?
Yes. So that's where our production meetings really come into play, because the director gives us a lot of direction and a feel for because sometimes in the script you can't tell if it's a heavy dance number or if they're just, dancing a little bit. Sometimes you'll know, but many times, sometimes there will be a show that we're doing where we didn't know there would be dancing at all involved in a certain scene, and there's a lot of dancing. So that affects everything from the shoes that they're wearing, and if the costume can stretch to do the movement that they need to do. So across the board, yes.
And color scheme, too.
And colors, yes.
Because when we did a production of Beehive, you had everyone in a different color.
Yes.
Obviously, it was a director's choice, but
yes.
still.
That was actually, the costume designer kind of came up with this concept of having each character have a color that they wore throughout the show. So that kind of evolved, and he talked to the director about that, and he loved it. So that's how that kind of came about.
Now, we've spoken to Jordan and Emily, and at the end of the show, they say they repurpose what they can, and then they throw away the rest.
Right.
What happens in costume world?
We try to keep everything because chances are we will reuse it, whether it's for a kid's show or in another show. And we're constantly pulling pieces that we've used for shows from the past. And what's great about having a lot of the designers return that have been here before is they know the stock as well as I do. And they'll say, oh yeah, that one dress that we used, let's pull that and do this to it. So we really try to keep everything in stock that we purchase or that we build. And then the only thing that we return are the costumes that we rent, and nothing is really thrown away. So
how do you determine what you buy, what you build, what you rent?
Cost, budgets. It's all about
there's
the
math
budgets.
Involved. You know,
yes,
we've been talking.
Yes.
There's quite a bit of math involved in all the other departments.
Yes, the amount of time that we have to put the show together plays a huge role in what we decide to build, and because we have to have a cast first and then get the measurements, and once we have the measurements, we're able to start building the pattern and building everything. And what we'll do to save time is the costume designer will shop the fabric ahead of time, knowing that the costume is going to need, so many yards of this material, but we'll hold off on building that size until we know that the actor has signed their contract, we have the correct measurements, and then we start to build. And with the process that we do here, we really have 2 weeks of rehearsal. So as soon as the actors arrive, we hit the ground running with fittings. So we'll prep for those fittings a couple days beforehand. When the designer is in town, we'll organize everything in show order so that when we are fitting the actor, we're able to say, this is your Act 1, Scene 1 costume, and this is what you're doing in this costume, so that we can have those conversations so that they're not just like blindly putting on clothes and like, oh, this is cute. There's a purpose, and then we're able to troubleshoot anything that they might feel like their character wouldn't wear, and we can have those discussions in the fittings. But we usually try to do all of the fittings once meet and greet starts within the first 3 days of rehearsal. And then because we take the notes in show order, we will start on alterations top of show, so that once we're winding down, if we're not done with everything, it's at least the end of the show and we have some time to finish it. But priority is usually whatever we're using for the photo shoot the following week. And we typically we'll refit some actors with whatever we're building for finishing touches, but we try not to steal the actors too much from rehearsal. So it's kind of, it helps us as well to kind of have everything fitted in the beginning so that we can just work on alterations for the following week and a half that we have to do them. And I'm a little crazy. I will count how many alterations we have to do, and
well, you have to keep track.
Yes.
You have to be very organized to be able, because each actor has at least one costume.
Yes. Many have multiple costumes. And there's a lot of tracking involved with the wardrobe supervisor as well for the run of the show. So if they're repeating something, that's where we get the exit and entrance sheet from stage management. And so we know, okay, they're taking off this jacket stage left, but then they have to put it on stage right in 2 minutes later. So we have to make sure that somebody is tracking those pieces where they need to be so that they can be put on again.
There's a lot of choreography that happens while the show is happening.
Yes.
You have a crew who are actually helping the actors get into their costumes, correct?
Yes. So we have 3 apprentices that function as our stitchers and dressers backstage. And so like I said, with a large musical, we're looking at doing about 250 alterations between the 3 apprentices, myself, the first hand, and the wardrobe supervisor is usually working on the paperwork, but she'll come in to work on other notes like shoe notes and shoes that need to be painted or rubbered or things like that. So there's a lot of things happening within that week and a half. And then of course we get our lists of what they want in rehearsals to wear, because they're doing some some choreography with it. So we got to make sure that those pieces are ready first so that they can have their hands on them. For example, when we did Lacage, we ended up having a quick change rehearsal because there was so much involved with those can skirts, and they needed those can skirts like day one, and we were like, we have to fit them first. But yeah, so it's a lot of coordinating with stage management and what the actor needs. And another reason why we want to get everything done within the first 3 days of rehearsal is the actors want to wear their shoes, and especially if they're dancing, they want to break them in. They want to make sure that that they can do everything that they need to do in those shoes. A lot of times they'll wear the shoes the first day of rehearsal and they'll say that they're too tight. I need larger ones. We need to stretch these. I need thicker socks. So there's like all these little things little notes that we try to get done, which is nice during rehearsals. And it's kind of nice that they do wear those things so that we're not getting all of those notes the first day of tech. So.
And you're talking about one show.
Yeah, one show.
Riverside does 7 professional productions
Yes.
and 4 children's theater productions a year,
Yes.
with a cast from 10 to 40.
Yes.
So you have to really be organized to be able to know what's going on, what's happening when and where, especially during the height of the season, January through April, where you have potentially 4 shows going on at the same time.
Yes, it's a little chaotic.
Now, a funny little question. Since the actors are in there and they're sweating and they're dancing, what do you do with the costumes after a show and on shows that have 2 performances?
Yes, so it's usually a tight turnaround, but we have what they wear, their base costume, so we call it their skins, and that's their undershirt, their dance belts, their tights, things like that. That we will wash in between shows, and everything else we'll spray vodka. Vodka takes the smell out, the sweat out.
People.
Straight vodka, do not dilute with water. And we have to steam everything and iron everything, but we'll usually wash whatever we can wash in between shows with the amount of time that we have. And sometimes, so during Act 1, if their top of show costume is done, we can start a load of laundry during the show. So a lot of times the washers are running during the show. At intermission, they're getting flipped. So it's a never-ending cycle of laundry.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, you have also been the costume designer for many shows here at Riverside. What added pressure or added bits are put on your plate when you're also the costume designer for a show?
Yes, it's a little stressful. It was definitely stressful in my first year here. I was so nervous designing for Alan. But in some ways it makes my job easier because there's no middleman. I don't have to check with the designer about making a purchase and say, is this what you want? I know what I want, so I know what I'm gonna go get or purchase. But it's definitely a different process, and I wear a lot of hats when I'm designing as well. But what's nice is whatever shows I am designing, I usually know ahead of time. So I will do all of my homework and prep work beforehand. I will source out where I want to shop things and have everything kind of ready to go, almost like putting stuff in a cart and not pressing pay until I have the measurements and the okay from Alan. There's a lot of just checking in and I'll take pictures of things and show Alan and say, this is what I'm thinking about. And he'll say, no way, that matches the couch I want to use. And then the couch changes and then I have to change my costume. So there's a lot of just, taking pictures and communicating with the director about colors and style. And then sometimes we love how it looks on the mannequin, and then we'll put it on the actor and we're like, this is not it. And then I'll just have to go back to the drawing board or revisit some ideas that I had before and say, you know what, maybe this is the direction. And things really evolve when the actors come in. The actors will really bring to life that character that they're playing and sometimes have a different spin or idea. and it will change things, but for the better. So I really enjoy communicating ahead of time. So when I'll email them for measurements, if I'm going in a specific direction for their costume, I'll let them know, but I'll also say, please let me know if you have any ideas about, your costumes. And sometimes the actor will say, I played this 5 times before. This is what I always wear. I don't like this color. This color really worked great, or this style worked great. So
you're open
feedback,
to the actor sort of giving you some information.
Absolutely, because I feel like if they need to be comfortable on stage with what they're wearing. Nobody wants to be on stage like unhappy with what they're wearing, because that's also going to affect, I think, how they perform, because everybody wants to feel good or feel like they're really reflecting who they're playing. So I think that's really important. Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for spending some time with us and sharing with the
welcome.
audience.
Yes.
I know when we do our backstage tours, this room is a highlight, and you've always been very generous answering everyone's questions,
Yes.
and I'm very grateful to you for the time you've spent with us. So now you know a little bit more about costuming here at Riverside Theatre, and there are more episodes that we want you to tune in and experience Riverside at home. Thank you.